Hello and welcome to another episode of the Speak for Yourself podcast. My name is Casey, and I'm so glad that you're going to join us either tonight or later through Spotify or whatever you listen through. Uh, am so excited to introduce my next guest, Mr. Spike Cohen. This is one of the three people primarily responsible for getting me into the libertarian movement and party. He is the number one ATF cyber bully, and he is one of the people that I believe best exemplifies everything right with the libertarian movement and just the people that are involved with that. Spike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. That's a great intro. And no pressure for me to do a good job on this, I guess.
I try, man. uh, Man, I first ran across you before I was even really introduced to what libertarian was or what the Libertarian Party was, um, just by my disdain for the ATF. And so I've seen your posts when you're bullying them online and that sort of thing. And I loved it. I think I followed you before I even knew what the Libertarian Party was, that sort of thing.
Whatever this is, I agree with this. Whoever beats up on the ATF like this on a regular basis, I probably agree with them on everything else too. That's awesome, man.
Well, hey, man. I really want to talk to you about a few things tonight.
Sure.
But I would like to have you introduce yourself outside of politics, just like who you are, where you come from, that sort of thing, and then we'll get into that other stuff later.
Sure. My name is Spike Cohen. I am a husband. I am I'm president of a nonprofit. I guess that's political as well, but it's not in the party. I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. My background is actually not in politics. My background. I started my first company when I was 16, and I've been kind of I guess you could say, serial entrepreneur. I feel like that's an overused term, but it probably works for me. I've been involved with a lot of business ventures over the years, and I was put in a position to be able to retire, to focus full time on I guess fulfilling my duties to the liberty movement. But that's actually my background is in the world of business, and I've applied what I've learned in that world in terms of creating and growing organizations, the sales and marketing knowledge that's necessary to be able to sell your brand and your company. The day-to-day stuff that comes with running a company. I now apply all that to what I'm doing now.
Awesome. So progressing a little bit, I'm always interested to ask people how they got into libertarianism. Were they aligned politically before that, and what was the transition into libertarianism?
Yeah, so looking back, I guess I was always libertarian before I even knew the term for it. When I was 3 years old, I changed my name, and insisted on it. Insisted that I could change my name if I wanted to. It's my name, and my parents went with it because I'm three. It's probably a phase. I'm now 41, so if it is a phase, it's a long one. But so right
I
from the
have a near
beginning.
2-year-old, so you're saying I have about a year left before.
You got a year left before they tell you what their name is. No, so I right from the beginning, I was kind of writing my own book and living by it. I was always an absolutist when it came to things like gun rights, which is the shared disdain for the ATF. I remember my dad very early on. I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and my dad always speaks with me. When I was a kid, he always spoke with me very matter of factly. I was from a second marriage. He was already well into his 50s at that point. He wasn't going to mince words. And I remember him telling me, like, we're Jewish. Many times in history, our people have been rounded up and most of them have been killed. And the first thing that they do before they do that is they disarm everyone. And then that way we can't defend ourselves. And so that's always stuck with me. Whenever I hear about gun control for your safety, and I watch people in line for gun buybacks, or I watch people advocating for disarmament, and I see politicians who are surrounded by heavily armed guards, And I'm like, this has nothing to do with safety. If this was about safety, you wouldn't let any of those armed people near you right now. This is about disarming us so you can do whatever you want to us. And that stuck with me since I was a little kid. I never thought that the government should be able to tell us, what to put in our bodies, or force us to put things in our bodies. I never supported the war on drugs. I never really cared that much, if two people love each other and want to marry each other, why that's anyone else's business. Certainly not the government's business. So I was always very much, I guess, libertarian on most issues, but I didn't necessarily know the term, nor did I really identify with it. And when I was 19, 9/11 happened. And that was long before social media. And I was only hearing about what was happening through the corporate media channels. And so I'm hearing the government and corporate media line, which was all the same thing. Everyone on there was saying the same thing. We were attacked by this terrible group that seemingly came out of nowhere with no context behind them. And they hated us because we were so darn free. And they never really said what free meant. We were free. There were vague references to like the women wearing tight shorts, and I'm all about protecting that. Like I'll fight the right of women to wear the tightest shorts. So I bought what they were saying, that we were free, and these people hated us because we were free, and they wanted to impose their terrible system on us. And so we had to do it to them first. We had to bomb and invade their countries and install puppet leaders and kill as many people as possible to show them our peaceful democratic ways. And as ridiculous as it sounds now, I completely bought it. I completely believed it. And there were always, in my, in different forums, like chat forums, and in, some email lists that I had signed up for and stuff like that, there were always these annoying libertarians who would say things like, well, that was the other thing. I'm a small business owner. I did not want the government in my life at all. The taxes, the regulations, all of that was killing me. Even at 19 years old, I knew that I did not want the government involved in my life. And so they're saying, okay, you don't want the government involved in your life. You don't like taxes and regulations, but you want them to spend trillions of dollars on this, nation building campaign across the Middle East or the Muslim world. And you want them to, respect your rights, but you also want them to impose this, spy state that wiretaps you without a warrant at any time that they want to. And you want people to be held indefinitely without trial in Guantanamo Bay without any proof that they even did anything, based on just their word that they're bad people. This is not what you really want. And I remember I would think, why do these people hate America so much? Why do they want the terrorists to win? And then, they made their predictions of what would happen, and each one came true. It turned out that we were lied into going into Iraq, and that we were not told the whole story about the war with Afghanistan, and that they did actually want to negotiate with us, but that our government refused to, and that we weren't greeted as liberators, and thousands of our loved ones would come home in body bags, and tens of thousands more would come home with PTSD and brain injuries and all sorts of other problems, and hundreds of thousands or millions of innocent people would be killed overseas, and that no one would really ever be held accountable for it. And I realized that I was getting angrier and angrier, and I realized it was because I was wrong and they were right. And there's a good way to fix being wrong. Stop being wrong. And
Yeah.
and it's interesting because I thought, Casey, at the time, I was like, you know what? I got here in kind of an ad hoc way. I didn't really have a philosophy of which to speak. Let me really spend some time to figure out what it is I believe. I certainly don't believe what I've been believing, but what do I believe? And I like to say I read everything from Mises to Marx and everything in between, and I ended up settling on libertarianism. Now, I'd like to think that the reason I settled on libertarianism is because it is objectively the only true correct philosophy, and I'm that maybe that's the case. The fact is, it was libertarians that reached me first with their message of why this was wrong. They were the ones that made the most sense to me and kind of reached me where I was as sort of this government skeptical neocon. And maybe the fact that that was in the back of my head when I'm reading these things, the seeds they had planted, maybe that's what led me to libertarianism. But at the end of the day, I landed on libertarianism, and what led that to happening was libertarians saying to me, you don't really believe what you say you believe. And that has always stuck with me, that it was not libertarians yelling at me or insulting me. It was not libertarians pandering to me. It was not libertarians just over here saying things that made sense because I never would have listened to them. It was them actually meeting me on something that we already agreed on and kind of walking me down the path of why consistently and logically I had to agree with them on these things as well. And that's always stuck with me. That's what brought me to libertarianism.
Awesome. Do you happen to know what age that switch happened?
So 19 was when I, kind of became a neocon after 9/11.
Yeah.
I would say that it was kind of this like relatively fast, but it wasn't like this immediate thing. I would say right around, so let's see, probably right around 2000, 2000, somewhere around 2006, 2007, I really started questioning things. By around 2009, I was considering myself more of a constitutionalist libertarian type. And by like 2012, 2013, I was a straight up ANCAP.
Gotcha. That's kind of like that libertarian to ANCAP pipeline.
Yeah.
They
And
always say
I
it's like
wish,
6 months.
they say it's 6 months. For me, it was a little bit longer. And honestly, I probably philosophically would have agreed the most with anarcho-capitalism pretty much as soon as I adopted libertarianism. I mean, after it was Rothbard and Carl Hess and people like that were people that among the people I was reading. I had read Spooner and all of that, and so I probably philosophically settled on that. But I was always still kind of in that mindset of, well, we need to be protected from invasion, and what are we going to do about crime and things like that. Sort of, they say it takes anywhere from 20 to 30 years to decondition from a cult. And statism is absolutely a cult. It's one you're indoctrinated into before you can even form words. And so, it took me a little bit longer than I'd like to admit to truly, cast off the last of my shackles and truly embrace anarcho-capitalism. But yeah, I wish I,
I'm
now
still there, brother, but I'm getting close.
and here's the thing, and I don't want to beat up minarchists and constitutionalists too much, because the reality is, what if I'm wrong? What
True.
if maybe philosophically I'm the most logically consistent, but we live in a world that isn't logically consistent, right? So like maybe in terms of actual practice, some kind of minarchist state is the best thing we're ever going to get in any sustainable way. Maybe not. Maybe it's something else. But the way I like to look at it is, for you and me to spend too much time arguing about that when we're we're on a trajectory to ever increasing tyranny by the day. It would be like you and me if we were handcuffed in the back of a van that's about to speed off of a cliff, and we're sitting there shackled, and we're spending our time arguing over what kind of restaurant we'd open if we weren't about to die. It's like, no, why don't we focus on how to get these cuffs off, how to get the brick off the accelerator and get this car parked so we can get out of it and start hitchhiking back home, or driving the van back home, whatever, and trying to figure out, like what we're going to do. When we get to the exit, let's figure out which exit we want to take when we get there. But in the meantime, let's work together.
Yeah. Have you had any opinions or views on anything that have changed within your libertarian journey from the start to now?
Well, I mean, if I guess from when I was a minarchist to now, I believe that people do best when they are most free, and most free is with all artificial governance removed, all coercive governance removed, and that is what anarcho-capitalism is. And for those who may be confused about it, we're not saying that there isn't any governance. Like, we want to live in a community where decisions are being made on certain things, and where, each person isn't an island, right? Like, I mean, some people do want to live that way. They want to live off grid and in the woods in a cabin and just be reliant on themselves and maybe a handful of other people. That's perfectly fine. Most people don't. I certainly don't. And so there's always going to be situations of common or adjacent ownership, like, people all owning different parcels of property that back up to the same lake. So they're probably going to have to figure out how they're going to commonly manage the lake or something like that, or decide which one of them owns it or something like that. So there's always going to be certain levels of governance. If that governance is voluntary and not coercive, if it's agreed to by contract by the actual owners of property that are related to whatever that thing is that they have a stake in. And if it's funded through voluntary and agreed to means, then that's a type of voluntary governance. That's a type of anarchy. So anything that's changed, I guess, since I've considered myself an ANCAP has actually had less to do with like philosophy of how things should go than with how we should be communicating it to others. Actually, I guess one thing I would say is I used to think when I became an anarcho-capitalist, I used to think the only thing that's going to work, the only society on any scale that could work is one that is entirely vested on private property rights. And then someone asked me, they said, okay, there's, I think at the time, 7 billion or 7.5 billion people. And I said, yeah. And they went, okay, so let's say there was a Rothbard button, that button that you could press that would make all governments go away. I said, yeah. And they said, you'd press it, right? I'm like, oh, absolutely. And they said, okay, so let's say you press that button. All 7.5 billion people, now it's like 8 something, but all 7.5 billion people are all going to voluntarily organize the exact way you think that they should, right? And I was like, shit, I don't like that. I don't like when you word it that way. And I settled on something, man. I think that there's always going to have to be a certain level of respect for individual autonomy, what I call human respect, respecting each other as individual human beings, and extended out from that, some level of respect for property, private property. But I think that the values of people in a given community are going to have a lot more to do with are going to be a much heavier indicator of what a voluntary society would look like in that given community. There may be a neighborhood that if you gave them all, you said, okay, you're free, there's no more government, you can, figure out how to distribute your scarce resources as you see fit. They may all decide they want to live in some kind of voluntary commune. They might decide that their values are more towards the greater good of the community than any individual part of it. Others like ours may be, completely eschew something like that and only want to do, a more voluntary form of anarcho-capitalism, or it might be something in between that we haven't even considered yet, or some hybrid of those things. As long as so I guess what I've settled on now is I think the community I would want to be a part of would be an anarcho-capitalist one. And I think most people would settle on something closer to that. But there might be voluntary communes all over the place. And as long as they're respecting the property of others, that certainly fits within the model of what a voluntary world or a voluntary society would look like. I think the much more important thing is figuring out how we're going to get from our increasingly dystopian hellscape that we live in now to moving in that direction, whatever that direction is.
Gotcha. So back in 2020, you ran with Joe Jorgensen, and you two were actually my first libertarian vote. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about your experience with running.
Running for vice president was the most challenging and one of the most rewarding things that I have ever done in my life. And I loved I loved every bit of it. And yet, when people ask me if I'm considering running for president in 2024, I literally immediately start thinking of the days after days after days of sleeping for maybe 2 hours spread out in 20-30 minute chunks across the day, and having to travel to a different state just about every day. And in that last in October, and the last 2 or 3 weeks of the campaign, basically visiting 2 states a day, anywhere from 2 to 6 different flights from different airports to get the different places. And, constantly I was always either on the phone or had a camera in front of me to do an interview, radio, TV, in-person interviews. It was constant. It was a constant flood of interviews, constant flood of events, constant flood of, talking with people, meeting folks from across the country, hearing their stories, and relating to them what I was fighting for on their behalf, in our fight for, running for public office and fighting to spread the liberty movement, helping candidates get elected in all across the country, hundreds of candidates for local offices across the country. Basically being in a different place every single day. I remember during the campaign, they showed this clip of Joe Biden saying, "I'm happy to be here," and where am I? And people were making fun of him, and I was like, no, I honestly just now had to look and remember where I was. So like, there's plenty of times where Joe Biden is probably showing signs of dementia. That wasn't necessarily one of them, because if his schedule was even half of what mine was, I get it, man. So it was an incredible thing, and it was, as much as I look back and go, man, I really enjoy being able to sleep 6 to 8 hours a day on a given day. I when I was in the middle of that, I couldn't have loved it more, and I have nothing but great memories about it. I think it was one of the just the coolest things anyone could do. And I haven't ruled out 24, but if I do rule it out in the future, at least part of it will be because I don't want to put myself and my wife through that again.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But I did love it. I did love it.
If you were to do that, when would be like what's the announcement month? Is it like December usually for the Libertarian Party?
This year's been very early. So there were people that had announced this early or earlier in the 2020 race. I announced that I was running for the VP nomination in December of 2019. So that would have been like the equivalent of December of this year. But there were still people announcing that they were running for president and vice president into like, I think March, and I think April was when Justin Amash announced. Of course, he then immediately announced that he wasn't running like a week or two later. But I mean, we had some really late announcements. Larry Sharp announced he was running for VP in April of that year. That was a lot later than anyone expected. This time around, I suspect that the nominations will have, or announcements for running will have probably been decided by the end of this year, maybe sometime in January. I may be wrong, but I tend to think, just the way this race is shaping up, everyone will have announced by that point, probably. Barring the unforeseen, if I did decide I were going to run, I would probably not be announcing until towards the end of this year. If I decide for certain that I'm not running, I will be announcing that pretty much as soon as I've told the closest people around me. So like that next day or later that day. So if I do truly rule it out and say I'm not going to do that, then I would be saying that whenever it would be happening. I mean, technically you can announce the day of the nomination, which would be the end of May. I can't see any situation in which I do that. But really what it comes down to is, how am I going to best help this movement? The work I'm doing with You Are the Power right now is as or more impactful than anything I did running for vice president. And I don't say that lightly, because I feel like I made a very a fairly significant impact running for vice president, and we're just getting started with You Are the Power. So if I determine that the best thing I can do is just to stay put at You Are the Power and continue growing this, then I'll do that. If I determine that the best way I can help this movement is to put a good team in place at You Are the Power to make sure we keep meeting our goals for growth and expansion there, while I go and run for president for, I guess, roughly a year, give or take, and then come back to You Are the Power, assuming I don't get elected. If I do get elected, then that's all out the window. But assuming I don't get elected, then I will make that run. But I have to determine how I can best help this movement, basically. And I got to answer a lot of smaller questions to be able to answer that big question. So I'm not going to be coy about it. As soon as I know, pretty soon after that, everyone else will know.
Well, that's very interesting, and I'm just talking off the cuff because I didn't know you were interested in that.
I haven't ruled it out. But we'll see. We'll see.
Do you think, and this is again off the cuff, that you would be a good candidate for the Libertarian Party, in that you could unite the two sides, which is basically the Mises Caucus and like the classical, the classical Libertarian
Classical
caucus?
Liberal Caucus.
Yeah.
So, well, and the thing is, something to remember, the bulk of the day-to-day membership of the Libertarian Party, they may lean more towards one caucus or one faction or another, but most libertarians are like, I just want us to win. I just want us to do better, right? Like they're actually, they might not even, many of them aren't even aware of the caucuses, or if they are, they don't know much about the difference between them. I have pretty good connections in both caucuses. I was a member quote unquote, of the Prague Caucus before it dissolved. And the classical liberal caucus has a lot of the people from the pragmatist caucus as well as the radical caucus. And so I've got good relationships with people in that caucus. I joined the Mises caucus the day after it was founded back in 2017. I actually joined that before I joined the Libertarian Party. And so I've always been a part of the Mises caucus as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I certainly, I think I'm in a good position to unite a lot of libertarians. The question becomes, I guess, twofold. One, is that the best thing I can unite them under is a run for president? Or should I continue to unite libertarians and people across the political spectrum under the work that we're doing at You Are the Power, which is it's a nonpartisan group, but we have in our volunteer leadership team, we have libertarians in all different factions. And it's funny because these people will fight, on Libertarian Party stuff, but they're working together every day when it comes to You Are the Power. We have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have registered independents, we have people that aren't even really sure politically where they fall. We have non-voting anarchists. We actually have agorists that are against voting in any form in our leadership. We got people across the political spectrum on all levels. So it really comes down to, like, where can I best help to not just to unite the existing movement, but to grow it on every front.
I want to get to You're the Power here in a second, but I have one more question kind of on the thread that we're going.
Sure.
And I've talked about this a little bit on previous episodes, so I think people know my idea on this, but I want to get your opinion. What do you think the value is in a libertarian presidential run?
Well, I think the main value, actually, I'm not sure which one there are two ones that I would say are the two main values right now. And it probably depends on the day which one's more important. One is getting that message out there, using the run for president to get a message of what libertarianism is, and not just like philosophically what what libertarianism is, but like what our solutions are to problems that people are facing. Because most people, they don't care about their philosophy. They don't. If you said, "What's your political philosophy?" they'd say, "I don't know. I vote Republican, I vote Democrat, I don't vote, or I don't trust politicians," whatever. Like, they don't have a philosophy as such, and they may never have one. Sure. So our focus should be on, okay, here are the things that people care about, that people are talking about right now. Here are our solutions to those and why they would work, and contrasting that with the harm that's either being done by the status quo or being proposed by other politicians. Here's how those would go poorly. Here's how that would go well. Even though libertarians typically aren't consequentialists, most people are. They're more concerned about the consequences. Is this going to work? So that's the main, the main purpose, I would say, or that's one of the main purposes. The other one is helping get down ballot races elected. These are the races we can win now. These are the races we've already won hundreds of, sometimes almost despite ourselves. We put all of our focus into president and governor and Senate and Congress. We've never won any of those races. But yet, with not having the main focus on it, we win hundreds of city council races, township board races, county council races, sheriff's races, mayoral races, school boards, zoning boards, water select district, all these different things that honestly on a day-to-day basis far closer and more acutely affect the people living in that community than anything that's happening at the state or federal level. So by getting them elected and by having a candidate, a presidential candidate who comes into town, and this is something I think I did fairly well during the 2020 race. At just about every event I did, we had at least one or two local people that were running for office in that area or that general area or that some other area of that state come and speak as well. Okay, you're here to hear what I have to say? Great. Here's someone who can actually get elected. Here's someone who's actually got a real shot of getting elected. And hear what they have to say, and here's how you can support them. And, we help get a lot of them elected or help to contribute to their getting elected. So I think that that's the other role as well. With that said, I do not believe in the theory of because you're running for a race that we've never won before, and because the odds are essentially they're not zero, but they're pretty darn close to zero, that we're going to win. We should go into it saying we're not going to win. We're honestly not even trying to win. We just want to tell you about what libertarianism is. The problem with that approach is if you say I'm running for president, I'm not going to win. 90+% of the people who were tuned into what you had to say, even if they had no intention of voting for you, they were listening to you because you said, I'm running for president or vice president or Congress, Senate, whatever, and I'm not going to win. They go, oh, okay. And then they stop listening. And some of them might actually feel insulted that you said, I'm running for president. I'm not going to win. I'm not even trying to win. I just wanted to tell you about this. It's almost like a cold call where you're scamming them, like, hey, I want to tell you about something. Actually, I want to tell you about this other thing. That can blow up in your face. And if you have someone who's running that when people look at them, they go, yeah, I like what they have to say, but has this person ever run anything? Have they ever, do they know how to actually run an organization? If let's say this person actually got elected, could they do it? Is this someone that I agree with what they're saying, but can they actually, be the presiding executive officer of the U.S. federal government? And if the person goes, well, no, I mean, it's not even like I'm going to get elected. I'm not even trying to. They don't care what you have to say. They might even agree with a couple things you said, but they're going to write off Libertarian Party as those people who aren't even trying to win. That could affect you 20, 30 years later when you are trying to win. But that person remembers when they saw that presidential candidate and they go, they weren't even trying to win. So you can go into it and say, listen, I know what our odds are. I know that we've never won a race like this. And thanks to the burdens that are put in place by Republicans and Democrats, it is an uphill battle for us. They fight to keep us off the ballot. They fight to keep us off the debate stage. And until people start voting differently, they're going to be able to continue to get away with it. I'd like you to know what I will do if I get elected. If you present it that way, then you're not, you don't look like you're blowing smoke and saying, well, of course I'm going to get elected. There's nothing in my way. You're being realistic, but you're also still fighting to win. And you're making it clear that that a lot of the reason why it's hard for you to win is because of unfair things that are in the way, but you're not centering your message on that. You're centering your message on, if I got elected, here's what I would do. And one vote from you is one vote closer to that. And you help to kind of divorce them from the binary choice they think they have right now, which is either Republican or Democrat, and any other option is stupid because they're not going to win. Instead, we change that binary that they have from that to the parties that are probably going to win, and they both suck and I hate them and their options are terrible and they just constantly lie to me and they never follow through. Or this option, which may not win, but if it did win, then I'd win too. And by winning those local races, we just changed that narrative from they can't win to they do win. And when they win, I win too.
I had Reed Coverdale on a couple episodes ago, and he said something very interesting that I want your opinion on.
Sure.
He said that it's kind of counterintuitive that when things are getting worse, they're bad and going worse, that people tend to go back to the duopoly and be less open to libertarianism, as opposed to when things are doing well and great, the economy's good, all of that kind of stuff, that they're more prone to looking towards a third party option. Has that been your experience, or what are your thoughts on that?
There might be a group of people who are more or less likely to consider voting libertarian based on those factors. I'm sure there are. The overwhelming majority of people, it doesn't matter what's happening. They're not going to vote for us for now. And that could change quickly. Like with the right series of circumstances, that could change. But broadly speaking, they are married to a narrative that you have two choices. You got to decide which one is the lesser evil, and it's your civic duty to pick flavor red or flavor blue. And if you do anything else, if you vote for any other party, if you vote independent, if you don't vote, then you're shirking your civic duty to pick from these two choices that we acknowledge from the beginning suck. And it's a really frustrating narrative. It may very well be that when things are worse, people say, "Oh, this is this is what is it we hear? This most important election of our lives. It's far too important to vote third party." It may very
Yeah,
well be
I've
the
heard that
case, but
line every election.
so I love to actually turn it around on people before they say it. So I'll do a lot of radio interviews, mostly conservative radio. I do some progressive as well. And whenever, they'll bring me on to talk about issues. So I'll talk about issues and they'll go, everything you're saying makes sense, but I'm just worried, who's going to vote third party? Is it really worth voting third party? And I say, hey, listen, I just think things are far too important. And this election is far too crucial for us to throw our vote away and waste our vote by voting for the same two parties that created this mess. And if you start with it
That's great.
and like take their wording and shift it around, it's funny because usually when I'll say that, they'll just change the subject because that was the thing they were going to say. Whatever they thought I was going to say, they would go, yeah, sure, but isn't it far too important? Blah, blah. And so if you start with that, they'll often go, okay, we'll be right back after this break, or ask me the next question or whatever, because it's like I took their line from them, and I think I probably leave quite a seed in their head of them going, wait a second, that makes way more sense than what I've been saying. If it is too important, if we have this terrible crisis that is robbing us of choices because things are so terrible, and it's these parties that created that situation, maybe it is too important to vote for them. Maybe I should vote for this option instead.
The wheels are turning.
The wheels are turning. I don't know how fast they're turning, but they're definitely turning.
So I want to talk about You're the Power.
Sure.
How did you start that? How long has it been going? Can you tell the audience what it is?
Yeah, so we officially launched last May. So we've been around for just over a year. This has been something that's been it's kind of the fruition of something that's been in my head for a few years now. And it took some time. And actually, the campaign helped drive home what needed to be done. I was trying to thread the needle. Again, I come from the small business world and being involved with a lot of startups. You find a need, you find the problem, you find the need that problem is creating. You figure out who's been trying to serve it, if anyone, and if they have been trying to serve it, how they've been failing, and then you try to figure out how you're going to serve it better than they have. Or if there are already a bunch of people serving it, you figure out how to serve it better than they have. So you have to kind of identify these things. And so I'm looking at, the liberty movement and the Libertarian Party, but really just the broader movement. And I see that the authoritarian statist status quo has gotten us where we are, and that people are increasingly frustrated with that status quo, that they often get attracted to ideas that are worse than the status quo. They either stay with the status quo or they get they fall into something like communism or socialism or fascism or something like that. And things just keep getting worse. And people are suffering right now as a result of that. I mean, in ways large and small, everything from being greatly inconvenienced to, being on, about to be killed by government. And the liberty movement spends the bulk of our time arguing with each other, a combination of who to blame for the fact that we haven't gotten bigger. What would our utopia look like? Who should be leading this? Should we even be trying? Like all these different things, but it's like we're constantly fighting while everything's getting worse, and people either stay with the status quo or fall into even worse ideas, and people are suffering. And so it was kicking around in my head, like we have to figure out a way to thread that needle of giving libertarians something useful to do that can help people and show people how our ideas work in practice and not just in word, but in actual deed, and use that to grow the movement. But it wasn't really it was, kind of fragments of thoughts in how to do this. And when I went around the country during the vice presidential campaign, I met thousands of dedicated liberty activists. We had the grassroots people doing the events. It would have been impossible to make a national team that could have put together all the different events that I was doing. I visited 35 states, most of them twice, some of them 3 or more times. So I did hundreds of events. And these were local people. They were looking for something to do. And every 4 years they would get together and do this stuff and do door knocking to help get us on the ballot. And then the rest of the time, maybe they were helping with city races or they were helping with, different things, but they weren't being engaged on a regular basis and given things to do on a regular basis. And so they'd often fall by the wayside. And there was a lot of churn in the movement of people that got frustrated and would try it once or twice and never come back. And I thought, well, we have to give these people like actual winnable things. And they have the momentum to do it. And at the same time, I'm hearing people coming to my events telling me all of, when you hear someone's running for vice president and you have some terrible thing happening to you, you might go and tell this person, no, please help me. This is what I'm trying. And I'd hear all these stories and I'm like, and I'd say, I'm sorry, this sounds like more of a local matter. I'm running for a national office. Let me try to get you in touch with the local Libertarian Party to see if there's any way you can help. But I realized something. I needed to help them there. We needed to help them there. And sometimes I would give, this group of local libertarians, this person's contact information, and they'd build a movement around helping that person. And I thought, I got it. This is the thing. We find people who are being abused by their local governments. We help organize the existing liberty movement, as well as local people in that community, to get justice for that person and accountability for the people in government that are doing it to them. We use this as an opportunity to show people that our ideas work, that liberty works and statism and the status quo is failing them. And we pull them in, not just through some philosophy or arguing with them on the internet or waiting for them to figure it out on their own, but actually meeting them where they are and showing them how it works and giving them something we already agree on and getting them activated. And before they even adopt our principles, they're already liberty activists. They're working on us on cause after cause after cause, and at the same time getting closer and closer to our actual principles behind our solutions. And that's what You Are the Power came from. And so we spent pretty much all or most of 2021 and part of 2022 doing it as a proof of concept. We picked a few causes across the country and saw what we could do with it. And we succeeded 70% of the time. We got the government to back off. And 100% of the time, we collected and got people in that community more involved in the liberty movement through the work we were doing. Now, at the time, it was kind of more of that we didn't have an actual organization yet. We were just this sort of like somewhat decentralized group of activists across the country, but we didn't have a name, we didn't have a brand or anything like that. And I thought, this is going to work. We had no budget to speak of. It was us, spending our own money and raising, having small donations just for specific causes, and everything was going great. And so we launched in May of last year. Just before the Libertarian Convention in 22. So that was our first big event, was the Reno Convention. And since then, we have grown to nearly 3,000 members across the country, all 50 states. We are organized at the regional level and in many states at the state level with local organizers. We have worked on dozens of causes across the country. Our success rate's even higher than 70% now. We have brought in we have had a reach of over 50 million during that time. And we just continue to grow and help people who would have never otherwise been able to organize a movement around them to get justice. And we're watching it pay off day after day. And it gets bigger and bigger with each day. I'd love to have all of you be a part of it. If you want to go to youarethepower.net, you can become a member today. If you'd like to donate, you can do that as well. We'd love to have you be a part of the fastest growing movement in the liberty movement.
That's interesting because it sounds like some of the things that you're seeking justice for aren't necessarily like libertarian in nature, but by helping those people that they come to realize what the party stands for, and they learn a little bit along the way of that. So that's a very interesting strategy.
Yeah, so it's all of them are libertarian in nature in that we are proposing the libertarian solution. And the libertarian solution in almost all these cases is back off and let this person do this thing, or hold these bad actors that did this thing to this innocent person accountable. So like, in a police brutality case, the libertarian solution is, release any evidence of what the police did, If they truly, were abusing someone's rights and breaking the law, hold them accountable like you would anyone else. Fire them and change things. Change your policies so your police are actually respecting the people of that community. And if there are any charges, bogus charges against this person that they beat up, drop them. Like this is all libertarian stuff. What we don't do is say, first of all, we have nothing to do with political parties. I mean, if there are local libertarian affiliates or local or candidates for office want to join us, that's perfectly fine. That happens all the time. But we also have Democrats and Republicans join us. That's fine as well. We're nonpartisan. But we also don't necessarily say we have the libertarian solution. We say this thing is happening. 99% of people agree with us that this thing is wrong. 99% of people agree with us that this is the solution, and here's how you can help. And so we give them a call to action. Instead of arguing with people about libertarianism versus socialism or versus fascism or versus, just status quo Republican Democrat statism, instead of arguing with them, we find something they already agree with us on, and we say, here's what's happened, here's why it's happened, here's what we're proposing, and here's how you can help. We just give them a call to action, and they help, and we go, great, here's the next cause. Do you agree with us on this? Great, here's the call to action on this. So we're not waiting for them to adopt libertarianism as their philosophy. They may never do that. We're making them liberty activists by just giving them things that we already agree on together. So we're actually making them activists, and then they realize that they are libertarian over time, and we connect the shared intuitive human respect that they have for individual human beings that virtually all of us have. And we're connecting that to, that's called libertarianism. Here's how you can help.
Awesome. I want to play, if it's okay with you, the Columbia City Council video that you posted.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that all right? And can you set the stage for that a little bit before I play it?
Sure. So there's a lady named Erica Brown. And by the way, after you play this, I can give you an update on what's happened since then. Okay. It's all good stuff. But there's a lady named Erica Brown, and she has an organization called Be Kind, Be Great. And she feeds homeless people every Friday in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. And she's been doing this for a few years now. No problems whatsoever. They always clean the place up, leave it cleaner than it was when they got there. There's no, they don't obstruct traffic. They make sure to stay out of the way. The sidewalks are clear and all of that. They're not creating any kind of nuisance or anything. And they feed people, and they've partnered with local universities who, let their students volunteer for credit hours. The local sports teams, local businesses, local churches. They've worked with the community to help bring the community together to not just feed the immediate needs of homeless people there, but also to help get them on their feet, help them with any issues that they have. A lot of them are dealing with mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and things like that. Get them connected with people who can help them with that, get them on their feet so they're not homeless anymore. And so many of the people that help Erica are people that used to be homeless themselves. And want to now help pay it forward to people who are dealing with what they used to deal with. Everything was fine until a few weeks ago. She came out on Friday like she usually does, and the police greeted her, and they said, "Yeah, you can't do this anymore. If you come out again, we could fine you $500, and we could even put you in jail." And so she thought, Unreal. Okay, well then this is over. Like I can't fight this. She had gone out on social media and talked about this. We got word of what was happening. We have a constant flow of causes being brought to us, and this was one of them. We looked into it, saw what was going on.
Is it usually all by other people that forward it to you, or was it a combination forwarded to you?
It's a combination of the people themselves who are involved in whatever the cause is. Our membership who are just, out seeing things and then bringing it to our attention, and just members of the public bringing stuff to our attention. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I tell people we have a target rich environment of causes we can work on. The more resources we have, the more donations, the more members, the bigger you or the power is, the more of these we can take on. But there is no shortage of causes like this across the country. So we found out about it. And so we connected with her and said, here's our idea. And she liked our idea. So our idea was, we said, all right, this next Friday, the police and the police and city government have said that we can't feed people. We invite everyone to join us as we go there and feed people. at this exact spot, at this, the same spot, same time, same location, same place. And we invited the police to come out and join us. We invited the city council members. We invited city council members from other cities. We said, hey, everyone, we're going to go do this thing that the police threatened to put people in jail for if they do it again. And we fully expected, this was 2 weeks ago now, we fully expected that our activists, when they came out, we fully expected the police would come, and they fully expected to disobey them and just keep doing it and basically say, okay, you're going to have to arrest me. I'm going to feed them. They came out, they fed people, nothing. No cops came. Nothing at all. And so they did
You
come.
just have to invite them.
Well, I guess so. Yeah. If you say come, then they don't come. No, what it was is now it wasn't just one lady or 2-3 people. It was dozens of people coming out. They didn't want that. They didn't want that smoke. They didn't want the public sentiment of, oh, you're arresting a bunch of people for helping people. Why? That community service thing we heard about, you're arresting people? Why?
Yeah, that's a bad look.
It's a terrible look, right? And so, especially when the city of Columbia is claiming that they have this task force for homelessness and they're going to fix this problem. Oh, good, you're going to fix it by throwing people in jail for doing it. So anyway, the police did come towards the end to tell them they loved everything they were doing. Well, that's nice. So then we decided, okay, great. The next city council meeting, which was like the following week, the next city council meeting, we're going to go there and talk to them about this. Now, in between when our activists went there for the event and when we showed up for the city council meeting, the city council announced that they had a plan to address homelessness and invite the community to help. And the plan was everyone has to feed them at this one church that's a few miles outside of where the homeless people actually live. So every week they have to have a caravan across town of homeless people. No danger there, of course. And that they'd have to pay fees to the city before they could feed anyone. So basically they want a piece of it, and they'd have to get an insurance policy, and they'd have to like all this stuff that in no way does this help anything. But that was their way of trying to say, yeah, we stand with you. They went from saying we'll arrest you if you do this to, well, if you do this, you can do it this way. And if you don't, we'll arrest you. So it was like they were trying to negotiate, but the negotiation still sucks. So this is the result of when, once we got there, this is what happened.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to play this. I'm not entirely sure there's going to be sound because I can't hear the sound on it. But I think you can. So if you can't, let me know real quick. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Spike Cohen. I don't recall the First Amendment coming with a 3-minute time limit, but that's okay. I shouldn't even need that long. I'm here to speak on behalf of Erica Brown and Be Kind, Be Great, and all of the other residents of your community who are out helping people as they're being told by the city government that there's a problem with that. We've heard, Howard, you were one of them, we've heard some of you on the news saying that they're creating a hazard and that they're making a mess. And yet, when Be Kind, Be Great goes out and feeds people, they leave the place cleaner than they found it. You call them a nuisance. I don't think a person helping another person and giving them food is a nuisance. I think when someone shows up and lies about them and threatens them with fines or jail time, I think that's a nuisance. Now, what wasn't mentioned in your declaration about the plan that you're offering, what you didn't mention is it comes with fees. So you're now telling people who, out of the goodness of their own heart, are trying to help members of your community in need, that before they can spend a single penny to give a single morsel to someone who needs it, they got to pay you off first. Now, I don't think a single one of you, outside of your capacity as a government official, I don't think a single one of you, if you were on the other side of this dais, would dare to go out there to someone who's feeding someone else and say, this is a nice little charity you got here. Be a real shame if something were to happen to it. Maybe if you do it the way I tell you to, and you give me a little piece of it, I'll let you keep doing it, and maybe if not, we'll have some trouble. I don't think a single one of you would do that. I don't think any of you are sociopaths. I don't think any of you are protection racketeers or mobsters. I think what happens is you get on that side of the table, and you tell yourself that you're just doing your jobs. Well, if that were actually true, then your jobs are objectively evil. You should quit them and find something better to do. I don't think that's your job. I think you can choose to do your job differently and treat them with the same level of respect that you treat them with on this side of the table. And so what I'm here proposing, and this might sound crazy, is for you to act on that side of the dais as you would on this side of the dais and let people help people who are in need. Whichever you choose, I'm going to make sure, as I do in cities across the country, that millions of people know what you chose. I hope that the thousands upon thousands of those who contact you about it will be congratulating you on choosing to be a hero and not giving their thoughts on you instead of being a nuisance. See you soon.
So good.
Also, shout out to his name is Thomas Hill, the guy that with the Dunder Mifflin shirt who clapped too early.
Yeah.
I loved on I think it was on TikTok. One of the top comments was someone going, "I am that guy. I stand with that guy who claps too early." So that guy's Thomas Hill. He is our North Carolina organizer. And if people who know, Columbia is like right next to the border with North and South Carolina. Our South Carolina organizer, Matt Baxley, he's been doing all of our events there. He wasn't able to be at this one, so Thomas came to kind of help in his stead, and so he was there at the front. He spoke as well. So anyway, they didn't like that at all, and they spent
one of my favorite things was seeing the faces that you posted a little bit later after that.
Yeah. They were not happy at all. No, they were not happy. And it was funny because they were kind of bewildered because they then spent the rest of the meeting. We stayed there for almost all the rest of the meeting. Spent the rest of the time there going, we've been trying to help. We spent $30 million. Where? I have no idea. There's still just as many homeless people as there were, 2 years ago, if not more. And they're like, we spent $30 million. We're trying to do everything we can. Why are you saying what we're not helping? And literally every person would come up and say, we're just saying to let us do it. Go if you want to have this thing at the church, fine. If you want to spend 30 million, fine. Whatever, do whatever you want to do. We're literally just asking you to let people feed people. That's it. And they weren't getting it then, or they were pretending not to get it. So that got on the local news. Obviously, we put that on our social media. It has been seen millions of times on TikTok alone. It's been seen close to 2 million times. We suspect, based on previous ratios, we suspect that at least a few thousand people have contacted the council members at this point. And yesterday was Friday. And yesterday, Erica went out with Be Kind, Be Great, and they went to the same place they always go, and they fed as many people as they could, and no one came. The cops didn't come. No one came. And what's crazy is the cops, not only did they not have, because I said, I called her earlier today and I said, was there a heavy police presence? She said there was no police presence. They didn't even drive by, which is weird because they're in the middle of downtown and the police department is either across the street or up the road, or so it's like right there. They're in the center of all the government buildings and all that stuff right there on Assembly Street in downtown Columbia.
They were told to stay away.
They were told to stay away. So not only, they didn't even do their usual. When you're in a downtown where all the government buildings are, you're bound to just see cop cars driving by nothing. They were literally told, stay the hell away from Assembly Street while Erica is there. That's good. That's step one. So step two is we need to, because one of two things is happening. Either the city council is deciding that they're going to work with Erica and just let her do her thing, or they're kind of frozen, right? Fight, flight. What is it? Fight, flight, or freeze. They're frozen, waiting to see how this plays out. Whichever one of those it is, we have to keep up and stay the course. So what I'm asking everyone to do is, if they go to any of my videos or posts about this subject, I have all the email addresses listed out of the mayor and the city council members. And if you can't find that, if you Google or search online for City of Columbia, South Carolina, mayor and city council, they have a page where it has all their contact info, their emails and phone numbers and all that. Email them and just simply state that you hope that they, obviously use your own words, but that you hope that they just let Erica And people in Colombia who want to feed people, let them feed people. If they're not causing any problems, if they're not, causing a nuisance, they're not causing any danger to the community, they're not making a mess or anything like that, they're cleaning up after themselves, then just let them do that. There's no reason not to let them. Because we believe that with enough pressure, that the city council will do the right thing. They did not like that. And it wasn't just me. I mean, that was my clip, but there were many, many people there, a couple dozen people who got up to express their frustration about this. And so they didn't like that. I would love nothing more than to drive back to Columbia. This is one of those causes where I can just drive there because I live in Myrtle Beach. I'd love to drive back there and go to a city council meeting and go right back up there where I was standing and thank them for respecting Erica and the people she's helping as individual human beings and allowing her to help them and not getting in the way. And I'll take a picture with them where we're all shaking hands together. We can chum it up real good and put up a video where I say this, and I'll name them individually. This mayor such and such and city council members. I would love nothing more than to congratulate them on doing this awesome thing and being a hero. I don't want to, I'm happy to create enemies. I have a lot of them in local governments across the country, but I just as soon be friends with them. I would just as soon be able to go back there and say they did the right thing. We called them on it. We asked them to do the right thing, and here they are doing it. And people are doing great as a result. Thank you all so much for that. Like, I would love nothing more than that. So if you want to help be a part of that, you can go and find those emails, and you can email them and just nicely and respectfully say that you hope that they're hearing the voice of the people, and that they allow Erica and Be Kind, Be Great to feed people and stop harassing her and threatening her with fines and jail time. And I think that's the best you can do. If you want to give to Be Kind, Be Great, you can go to bkbg.org. If you live in or around the Columbia, South Carolina, Richland County area, you can show up on Fridays. If you're able to just donate a little, you can donate to bkbg.org. And again, if you want to be a part of what we're doing, fighting like this in cities across the country, youarethepower.net. We'd love to have you be a part of it.
Well, Spike, I don't want to keep you too past an hour, but I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
And this is probably the most important question. And yes, I can think of nobody better to answer it than you. Okay. So the question is, can you give a pitch to someone who is a lifelong duopoly voter, or even a young voter, on why libertarianism is the better way and the better choice?
Sure. So the thing I will say, there's two ways to answer that, and I'll give both pitches. Libertarians recognize that we do best when we are most free. And we believe that the problems that we are facing are a result of the fact that there is way too much power in the hands of way too few people, and they have next to no accountability for how they use that power. And we believe that the solution to those problems is to take that power and that money and freedom and decision-making ability and everything else that they've taken from us, take it out of their hands and put it back in the hands of we the people, where it always belonged. We believe in taking that power and decentralizing it back to local governance and to the individual. And that's what libertarians believe. And so if you agree with that, then we invite you to join us. We invite you to vote for our candidates and become a part of the party and become a part of the greater movement, the Liberty Movement. For someone who's been voting that may even agree with what we have to say, but they've just been voting Democrat or Republican for so long because they believe that they're the only ones that can win, my pitch to you is, however many years that you've been voting like that, have things gotten better during that time or worse? And if they've gotten worse, which I suspect that's your answer, if they've gotten worse, think of the fact that Democrats and Republicans have been in charge during that time in your city, in your county, in your state, at the federal level. You've had some mixture of Democrats and Republicans during all of those different times. It wasn't that one party was good and one party was bad. It's that they're all lying to you. One side is playing the good cop to your side and the bad cop to the other side, and the other side is playing good cop to their side and bad cop to your side. But it's all a routine. And the thing to remember about good cop, bad cop routines is they're both cops. They're both in on it. It's a scam. And the scam ends when we stop being scammed. And the first step to that is to stop voting for them. And as I said before, I think that this election and this time is far too important for us to waste our vote by throwing it away for the candidates and the parties who created the mess that we're in.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Spike. Where can people find you?
Sure. So I am on all social media. Just about every social media now. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X. Keep calling it Twitter. X. I'm on X. I'm on formerly known as Twitter. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Rumble. I'm on TikTok for the kids and the Chinese government. I am on just about everything. If you look for Spike Cohen, you'll find me. And I'm even on Reddit. There's a Reddit called Murdered by Spike Cohen, which it's just screenshots of me annihilating people. So I'm everywhere. If you look for Spike Cohen, you'll find me. And my website is spikecohen.com. That keeps up a running list of my upcoming events. So if I come to an event nearby you, come on out. I'd love to meet you. And final pitch, if you want to be a part of You Are the Power, we'd love to have you be a part of it. youarethepower.net. And as Casey did, if you ever get lost and you can't find me, just go to the ATF's Facebook page or Twitter account and look for their newest post. And if I'm not there yet, I will be soon. And then you'll find me. That is the Libertarian North Star is my comments on Facebook, Twitter, and X and Facebook posts.
Yeah, if it's not there one day, it'll be there the next.
It'll be there soon. Yeah. I rarely miss that opportunity. Usually, so the only time that I won't is if they've already been just thoroughly obliterated by other people. And so sometimes I'll comment and I'll say, well, I see my work here is done. Like it's already been done by you guys. And I'm proud of you for that.
Insult to injury or, beating a dead horse.
Everyone said what I would have said and they did it better than I would have. So I just like to say I appreciate it. In fact, I did that one time. I said, I just like to say I appreciate everyone that's already in the comments saying what I would have said. So I love y'all for it.
Well, thank you, Spike. Guys, if you will give me a follow, a like, anything like that helps on Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, anything like that. And we'll see you next time. Stay free.